Coming to you from a studio somewhere out there. It's Enough Already Radio with Fingers Malloy and Tracy L. Connors.
Good morning, and thanks for joining us for another Enough Already on Wham 1600 AM Ann Arbor, southeastern Michigan, and welcome to all of you listening to us on the World Wide Web over at enoughlalready.us, or of course you could check out the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, whole bunch of places. Tracy Connors,
Fingers Malloy,
David Frum says it's a coup.
Yes.
It's a coup.
He's thoroughly unaware of what that word means, apparently.
So the big news of the week is the Comey firing, and apparently it's a coup, and the president needs to be impeached. That's what I'm seeing. These people 6 months ago were saying that Comey needed to be fired.
Oh, less than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Where have you been this whole Russia? I mean, Hillary was out 2 weeks ago blaming him for taking the election from her death grip. Stealing it right out from under her.
Well, we'll get into that at the bottom of the hour with our guest. Tracy, who are we having on at the bottom of the hour?
We're having on Jack Posobiec, who is the D.C. bureau chief for the Rebel Media.
So he's at the White House briefings.
He has been this week, yes.
Oh, yeah, we got to talk to him about that. So that's the big story of the week. We'll wait to the bottom of the hour to talk about it, though. Obamacare, Tracy, continues to crumble.
Shocking.
I know. Nobody's talking about millions are going to die.
Yes. And it doesn't help if you have no insurers and a pre-existing condition. So we can mandate that, yes, you get insurance, but we can't force the insurance companies to stay in any state and provide you with that insurance.
But it's okay because your pre-existing condition can be treated with good intentions, Tracy.
Oh, this is true.
Obamacare is full of good intentions. But you have a piece from Bloomberg.
Yep.
That we
Aetna.
need to tear into.
Aetna's out. And now this is not new news that Aetna's leaving the markets. It's just this is crept into other states because they've already basically pulled out of my home state of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they were my provider.
Oh,
so that was fun.
Good news.
Yeah, imagine that.
And you have a pre-existing condition because you're a woman.
True.
That's what I'm told. So
yes.
You're really screwed.
Absolutely.
Well,
so
before you get into this Aetna thing, can you briefly go over your last experience trying to enroll did you go to the Obamacare website?
I went to look at it when it first launched, but I was not about to give them my personal information, which was a good idea in retrospect.
Oh, it was a safe and secure site, Tracy.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody knows that.
No, I wasn't one of the 6 people that signed up on the first day.
But can you briefly go over your experience signing up go over your latest adventure with trying to jump through the hoops of Obamacare?
Yeah, so my latest adventure was Aetna pretty much entirely pulled out of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. But they were selling one plan. And this is the joke of the whole thing, right? So it doesn't matter how many providers there are per state necessarily. I mean, it's nice to have at least one or you're completely screwed. Mm-hmm. But they're only allowed to sell 4 different plans. So what difference does it make who I'm getting it from if it's the same exact thing?
Right.
It would be like everybody selling the Ford Fusion. I can go to the Mazda dealer and get it, the BMW dealer and get it, the Ford dealership, or the Hyundai dealership. And I still only have the choice of 4 cars.
And what a world that would be.
Yeah. Terrible. Do they still make the Fiesta?
Of course.
Oh, that's a funny car. Oh, that's all to keep with the cafe standards, right?
Yes, exactly.
We got to make these little ones that are basically disposable that no one wants. So
I can't keep track of all the Ford models.
There's the fleet average. Yeah.
The Fiesta, the Focus, the Fiesta. Mm-hmm. I don't know. The Edge.
Yeah, there's so many of them you can only name 3.
All I know is a Mustang. That's all that matters.
We forgot the Explorer.
Oh, yeah. But But anyway.
Anyway. So I start getting letters from them right before the election, about October, letting me know the wonderful news that my plan is no longer offered from Aetna.
But wait, I thought if you like your plan, you could keep your plan.
Well, I couldn't even keep the original plan that I had and liked. So that's a story from years ago. That's a 2010 story.
Right. And now you can't you can't keep the plan that you don't like.
Correct. Yes.
Wow.
So I received letters from Aetna saying, hey, call this number, which ends up being a third-party insurance brokerage number, not them. Uh-huh. And so it's hard to get a straight answer. Like, okay, is Aetna still in Pennsylvania? Because that's the easiest thing to do, right? I don't want to have to go through this whole rigmarole. If they're still here, tell me what plans are available. Tell me how much more I have to pay you guys, and I'll just do that. I'm already in your system. It should be simple. It takes me a day or two to get a straight answer on that. Yes, they're still in. They only allow they're only selling the silver plan, and that's going to run you $80 to $90 more than you're paying right now. Great, I'll go shopping. So I go onto some website that you put in your information, and then a broker contacts you. So I'm getting calls forever.
It's like Lending Tree.
I'm still getting phone calls about this. And this was back, like I said, in October. And so I start getting calls. The first guy that calls me is one of our favorite types where the accent is clearly not a native English speaker.
Oh, hello, this is Steve. How may I help you?
Pretty much. And while I'm on the call with Steve, my line beeps and there's a call from some other number I don't recognize. So I jump over, and it's a fast-talking New York kind of guy saying, hey, you signed up. I want to walk you through this. And I was like, all right, cool. I'd rather deal with you than Steve.
So a New Yorker pulls up in a white van trying to sell you insurance.
Yes,
okay.
Pretty much. And I bought it. And so it ended up being about $40 cheaper than what Aetna had. Same plan. So that's the only differentiation that I can figure out exists between these companies is how low they're willing to go with their rate. So I'm on some, I don't even know, non-brand name insurance policy. And I have it so that I don't get fined. And that's about it. Now back to Aetna. From this Bloomberg story, Aetna Inc. will leave the few remaining states where it has been selling Obamacare plans next year, making it the latest health insurer to pull out of the health law. Lovely. So it says, while the move is likely to attract outsized political attention, the decision affects just Delaware and Nebraska. But, and then the following sentence, the Hartford, Connecticut-based insurer already said last year it would pull out of 11 states. And in the last month announced plans to exit Iowa and Virginia. So I guess the latest round is just that they're leaving Nebraska and Delaware. But then I love how this is all written as if it's supposed to lessen it. Oh, they said they were going to pull out of 11 plus 2 more, which is 13. So now we're talking about a total of 15 states that they're leaving. And I don't know if those are the only 15 that they're in. The article won't tell you that because they're still trying to prop this thing up by lying about how terrible it is.
Well, I mean, let's face it, just another greedy insurance company, Tracy.
Well, sure.
They're losing $200 million this year.
Yeah.
But they should be willing to lose that money, Tracy.
Well, originally they were supposed to get that money refunded to them. Mm-hmm. If you'll remember, that's how the law was set up. They said, oh, okay, if you guys lose a ton of money, then we'll just give you a taxpayer bailout, but we won't call it that.
Right.
So it's absolutely absurd. And near the bottom of it, they say, oh, well, Aetna might not be entirely out of Obamacare. Nevada has said it was working to convince the insurer to offer individual plans in the state for next year. Great. Isn't that... I mean, what consolation is this?
So pack your bags if you want Aetna insurance. I'm sure Harry Reid has a rental home you can move into on the cheap. You could be in Nevada for a year until they pull out in Nevada. Wow.
It's just unbelievable. And I wonder now if it's smart just to have the Senate fight over this for a long time, their version of the bill, the repeal bill, while the dominoes just continue to fall.
Well, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
On both counts, because let's face it, this is spiraling out of control. And then you have a Senate that is not willing to pass the House bill the way it is. And you're going to have... It's going to be interesting to see how long this debate is going to go on in the Senate. And time is ticking, because there are a lot of people that are on the right who are upset that this has kind of been botched from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Should be a one-page bill, Tracy.
Yes, what should it say?
What should it say? The Affordable Health Care Act is no more.
Oh, yeah. That's
Affordable Care Act is no more.
And we're going to work to disband Medicare and Medicaid. Thanks. See you later. Bye. The government is to be entirely out of the medical industry.
No, their solution is for all of us to pack our bags and move to Nevada, where we can get Aetna insurance for a year.
Maybe. Because the Aetna CEO did not comment on that. Wouldn't commit to saying yes, that they'll stay in Nevada for a year. They can't.
You can't continue to lose money like this.
No. This is so incredibly disruptive, and yet we only have our double amputee who's willing to kind of stand up and say this is maddening.
But this is also an example of why you don't make a deal with government to begin with when it comes, oh, we'll fund it. We got your back. Don't worry about it. That's what these governors don't seem to understand when it comes to Medicaid expansion.
Right.
That money will go away at some point.
Well, it was the same thing with the stimulus, right? A lot of that went to state governments to do different things. And I know one of the things that it was used for in Pennsylvania was education. So it pumped up the budgets of all the schools. And now they freak out because they want to keep that same baseline going forward. And so we all have to have our taxes raised now because they had that influx of cash, and which they can't help themselves but to spend immediately instead of shoring up the pensions and other things, or fixing the schools that are falling down and the textbooks that are covered in toxic mold.
They're worse than meth addicts.
It's absurd. They have no self-control whatsoever.
And I hate to veer off, because you said we would do this before we got on the air, but you don't have a story in front of you. But I'm just curious, you're in the Philly area. How's that soda tax going?
Not well.
It's paying. What is it paying for again? Schools.
Everything is always sold as we're going to pay for schools.
It's for the
children.
They
want universal pre-K because they aren't getting a hold of children young enough.
Right. If I have a kid, the first thing I'm thinking is, how soon can I get it in a government school?
Right.
Be great.
Well, I think a lot of it is predicated on that study that came out that said that children that are exposed to more words, to be as crude as possible, saying the number of words, different words that children are exposed to then directly affects how far they'll go in school, how well educated they'll be, what they'll be when they grow up, et cetera, et cetera. So this became, a talking point of the left. Oh, we need to get these kids exposed to more words. That's not happening in their households. So if we get them out of there and into school, we can just talk at them, I guess.
Well, what if I set my child in front of a television?
Correct.
And flip the channels from time to time?
That's why the study is ridiculous. It probably has more to do with parental interaction with children, like reading to them. So if you're in a home where you're read to, that probably means you're getting attention.
Right.
Which is more likely to be the reason that you're going to succeed in school and have decent self-esteem and those kind of things. Not that you heard a bunch of words.
Look, and Philadelphia was a good trial balloon for this because liberals have been itching for a long time to have some sort of soda tax to fight obesity.
Yes, including diet sodas. But it's not. They're not learning anything from this. The Seattle mayor, who just had to step down because of allegations of pedophilia, I believe. I might be saying that incorrectly. I can't remember how old the boys were that he was supposedly is alleged to have paid for sex. He just had to resign. And the story that I read about it, I can't remember where it was. I'll dig it up, though, and put it in the show notes. Of course, buries his political affiliation.
I'm just about to ask. I'm sure it's a Democrat mayor in the headline, right?
No.
Oh, did it?
It was about, no, and I couldn't even count the paragraphs to get to it. I'm serious. It was about 3/4 of the way through that he had to step down. But, he had been the champion of raising the minimum wage in that city.
Right.
Which then saw the shuttering of restaurants and all kinds of other businesses. And his latest thing was going for a soda tax that was going to include diet sodas. Which just shows you that it's not about sugary drinks and helping people be healthy. Not that diet sodas are healthy, but they just don't have any calories. So you can't convince me that you're trying to stop obesity by taxing diet sodas.
No, they want you to drink tap water, even though they can't guarantee that your tap water doesn't contain large amounts of lead.
Right.
Tap water and Soylent Green, Tracy. That's your diet.
Pretty much. Yeah, here's the stories from the Seattle Times. And it doesn't even say why he's stepping down in the headline. It's just, Seattle Mayor Ed Murray won't seek a second term. Quote, "It tears me to pieces to step away."
Nothing about a sex scandal or anything in the headline.
No. His decision comes a month after he was sued for alleged child sexual abuse in the 1980s, and less than a week before the official candidate filing begins. So I believe there are at least 4 men that have stepped forward and said that they were abused by him.
No
but
mention
it's really
of it
sad.
in the headline.
And I mean, no, not even a little bit. Nope. And he's denying all the allegations and all these things. And apparently, I mean, this has been going on in Seattle, and we missed some decent headlines. So they made him drop trow and show stuff to doctors.
Oh, no. Mm-hmm. Was he in a junk lineup?
Yes.
Oh, wow. How humiliating.
Yeah, they said there were headlines about Murray's genitals as an attorney for the mayor sought to rebut a detail in the lawsuit by presenting the results of a medical exam. It had something to do with a mole or something.
Oh.
This is information you never want to have about your mayor.
The incriminating mole.
Yep. Awful. It makes me think, wasn't there something about that with Michael Jackson?
You may be right. I mean, wasn't there something about that with Bill Clinton, too? It
Oh,
was
yeah.
supposed to point towards magnetic north or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was something that...
Very distinctive.
Yeah. Easily identifiable in a lineup. You see it on a wanted poster at a post office.
Oh, man, yeah. So,
what a world.
Buried 3/4 of the way, maybe 2/3 of the way down, is Murray is a progressive Democrat who built political influence as a state representative and a senator, brokering transportation budgets and fighting for gay rights as the state's leading gay politician. A self-described social justice Catholic, he considered the priesthood before studying sociology at the University of Portland. Yeah.
They had to throw in there that he studied considered studying the priesthood.
Yes. Of course. So under Murray, Seattle has set its minimum wage on a path for $15 per hour, and voters have approved a succession of tax hikes to boost spending on everything from parks and transit to subsidized preschool and affordable housing. So it's a progressive dream city run by a potentially molester mayor.
Oh, that'll happen.
Yeah. But like you said, good intentions matter more than just about anything else. It's pretty sick.
And you have a situation in Philadelphia where people are leaving the city to go buy their soda and bring it back into town.
Yeah, and they're doing the rest of their shopping outside of the city. Because if you're leaving the city to go buy your soda, you might as well buy the rest of your groceries.
Right.
So grocery stores are taking a hit.
And the mayor...
Yes, Mr. Kinney.
...is upset, not with how the law is affecting people, but how businesses are passing the tax on to the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know why they don't think that happens. I mean, they've raised the gas tax, and I'm not sure if we've now beat California with the highest gas tax in the country, but it's something like 70 cents a gallon.
Good God.
And you can see it reflected in the price on the signs at the gas station. It is passed along directly to the consumers.
You have to be pretty happy to be a gas station owner in Philadelphia.
Why? You don't get to keep that.
No, I'm being sarcastic.
Oh, yeah.
Because gas tax is through the roof, and, you know, one of the things you do when you go and fill up the tank is you go in and grab yourself a soda.
Mm-hmm.
Nuts to that.
Nope. Oh, God. And there's a big Planned Parenthood fight in the state, too. And I don't really understand why, but they're running the commercials where they lie. The woman in the commercial never says she got a mammogram at Planned Parenthood, but it's implied. And any of us that pay attention to this know that that's been debunked years ago, the idea that they actually do those.
Right.
So it's this woman, and she's talking, very seriously to the camera about how she found a lump and nobody could take her in to look at it that day. And then she found Planned Parenthood. And if not for them, she would have died. I mean, that's the gist of this thing. And then it's tell Senator so-and-so not to, or Representative so-and-so not to defund Planned Parenthood.
We're all going to die, Tracy.
Pretty much. It's just stunning to me that they continue to repeat that.
They get away with it.
They do. And I don't know how to disprove that. I thought about calling one of them and recording it and asking to schedule a mammogram, but you're not allowed to do that in Pennsylvania law-wise. I can't record a phone conversation.
Can you walk in and record it?
No. Probably not.
Ugh.
Well, it depends.
Well, you're a journalist, Tracy.
Yeah, but look at what happened with the films that were made at Planned Parenthood people out in California.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with whether a journalist or not. It's privacy laws, and Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state. So if there's no expectation of privacy, you could probably get away with it. But California is also two-party, and those guys are facing serious trouble now. I mean, when it comes to screwing with the Democrat, anything related to the Democrat Party, you're safer just to leave it be. And I'm not that motivated. I mean, I don't hate them that much. To me, it's just like, oh, you guys are filthy liars, and I'm disgusted that my tax dollars are going to fund your baby murder mill, but not enough to go to jail over it. So I'm sure that there are some people that are willing to do so. So I would encourage them to call up and record yourself asking to get a mammogram and being told, we don't do that. But we can recommend somewhere for you. Well, great.
So
That's
can
helpful.
Google.
I know.
I don't care. I'm moving to Nevada.
Yeah, you got to get that Aetna.
Been meaning to do that for some time anyway.
Sure. It's one of our favorite states.
That's right. Oh, I'd love to live in Vegas. Be able to go to the casino during the day knowing I have my Aetna insurance at night. With that, we have to take a break. When we come back, Jack Posobiec will join us. Stay tuned. More of Enough Already right after this.
The best place for news, fake news, commentary, and fake commentary is EnoughAlready.us. Enough Already Radio is on Facebook. Check out the fan page, facebook.com/Enough Already Podcast. It's Enough Already Radio with Fingers Malloy and Tracy O'Connor.
Welcome back to Enough Already with Tracy Connors and Fingers Malloy. Joining us right now is the Washington Bureau Chief for Rebel Media, Jack Posobiec. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Tracy, how's it going?
Great. I hear you're a Russian operative now, thanks to the work you did to spread information about the leaks that came out on Emmanuel Macron days before the election.
I can neither confirm nor deny Russian apprehension. No, yeah. So yeah. There's accusations left and right. The mainstream media has gone crazy, and all I did was share a link to 4chan.
It's unbelievable. I love the infographics that I saw that show your Twitter influence.
Yeah, I'm like, thank you so much for putting together this detailed example of how I'm in control of all of Twitter. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Do the Russians have a good medical plan?
It's a pretty good, but it's mostly vodka with the IV.
Oh man, and you have to avoid, what's their poison of choice that they like to use? You know, the one that makes
polonium.
Yes.
Which is funny because they're calling me, work that I work for the Russians, but really a month ago when I started working for Rebel Media, I'm like, no, I took a job with the Canadians. Like, I guess that's not quite as interesting, a little more boring to say, oh yeah, he's a Canadian operative in the White House. Like, no, I work for Canada. Hi, right here, right there.
Yeah.
Still American citizen, none of that, but yeah, I work for a Canadian news company now.
So you're pushing the Trudeau line.
Yeah, which actually isn't much of a line at all because it's more of an open circle, just like his borders.
But that's how this whole thing works, right? If you work for a Canadian-based news organization, therefore you are a puppet of the Canadian government.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I'm in here pushing Timmy Hortons and maple syrup and trying to get some mooses running around. It's gonna be great.
So walk us through the Macron leaks. All you did was amplify the story that somebody else had already dug into.
Yeah, so they've been posting documents on 4chan, the mid-word poll specifically on there, just like they do for lots of different things. They've been posting about Macron all week, and one day, and at first it was this interesting story about possible tax evasion and these billions of dollars in Cayman Island offshore accounts. And which apparently was a huge issue in France because they're all socialist and they're like, hey, wait a minute, you're not paying into the system. That's that's a huge deal there. So then there was another anonymous post that said, hey, keep tuned to poll because there's something big coming tomorrow. So I said, okay, and I'm literally just sitting there hitting refresh on poll, like waiting for something to come out, and you see like every stupid, silly comment that comes, and then eventually there's this one that says, oh hey, here's a massive 10,000 emails, documents, and images from Macron's emails that go back 20 years. And I'm like, yeah, I would imagine that's the big thing they were talking about. So we took that, Rebel Media passed it off to our tech team. We then actually reached out to, I got a buddy who was at ThoughtCon, which is the hacker conference that was going on in Chicago, coincidentally the same weekend, maybe not coincidentally, I don't know. And they were able to verify all of the email headers. They were able to verify, yeah, this comes from the Macron campaign. This comes from the actual EU server itself. Like, these are legit. So at that point, I said, hey, let's have at it, guys. Check it out and put it in. And then so we're there. Of course, it's all in French, and I don't speak French. I only speak Russian and English. And so I had to actually get people to, come in and translate and put some stuff, or I'm dumping it out in Google Translate. But because I was doing this so quickly, and the same way that, like, I think a lot of people that are, grew up with technology or grew up in the internet age can do, I'm doing it so quickly that the New York Times and Le Mans and all these other people say, how's he doing this? How's he getting all these documents so fast? He's a conspiracy. They leaked all this. Posobiec, he's working with the Russians. And I'm like, no, this is just what actual work looks like. You guys may not be used to seeing that, but this is what work looks like.
Yeah, and they have way more resources at their disposal than you over at Rebel.
I had a laptop and my iPhone.
It's so stunning how the tables have turned and the power has shifted. And they still don't get it, and they'd rather spend time trying to smear you as a Russian operative than dig into the information themselves.
Well, that's just it. It's whenever it's interesting because there was a similar leak about Francois Fillon earlier in the election regarding tax evasion, but because he wasn't one of the media darlings, the media just pounced on it. They went after him, every headline, tax fraud, he's cheating, this and that. Total disgrace, went down in flames in the election. But when Macron had the same issue, it was, who are these people that are coming out with this? Where does this information come from? Is he a member? Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the alt-right? Or actually, they're calling it. They're not so much saying alt-right anymore. They're saying far-right. So they said Le Pen was far-right. They're calling me far-right. So I think far-right is the new Orwellian media speak for not Marxist.
Okay. I just figured that was the European version of alt-right. I don't think it's caught on over there. The label alt-right, at least. They like to have far-right, which just then gets associated with Nazis.
Yeah, and a friend of mine was saying, far-right, because did that just mean people who believe in sovereignty?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, that's how much they've destroyed language at this point.
It's funny because if you actually put this on like a political chart or political graph or Trump or like the Trump movement, I mean, it's actually quite centrist when you look at it. Mm-hmm. It's not far right at all. It's just this idea of, okay, we're going to have sovereignty, we're going to have nationalism, we're going to have national security, but on social media or social issues, economic issues, it's really not far right at all.
Sure. But you're talking reasonableness now, and that's not how
I'm trying to use reason and logic. I apologize.
Yes, that's anathema to these people. So anyway, let's move on to you being in the press room this week. I believe that was the first time you were invited to, well, not invited, but you got through your clearances and you were in the White House press room. Yeah,
so I had that one. I'm actually headed there today. I'm going to be in for my second one. And I got to say, it was an eye-opening experience. I mean, look, for a guy from a kid from Philly, right, growing up in Philly suburbs, working at a tomato pie shop, working construction, to be standing there in that room, it was amazing. And to just walk on those grounds where Lincoln and Reagan and the Kennedys and all the Roosevelts, FDR, Teddy, all those amazing history, and like to be a part of that, it was so great. And then you go into the press room itself, and the magic kind of fell apart. And you see, because it's the press, and they're still the press. And it was just like, man, these people, and they're so, we went back into the kitchen area, we went back to where the bathrooms are, and it was filthy. It was absolutely filthy. They even had this big, I wanted to get some caffeine, they had like an espresso. They said, oh, you can use the espresso machine. It wasn't even cleaned. And they had a big sign up. They said, hey, this espresso machine, apparently it was donated by Tom Hanks, like $2,000. But there was a big sign that said, please make sure to keep this espresso machine clean. Tom Hanks paid $2,000 for it. And it was filthy. It was disgusting. And it was like, guys, if you're not even going to keep your own spaces clean, if you can't even handle the details of personal hygiene, then how can we expect you to handle the minutia of domestic and foreign affairs of state when you're not even taking care of yourselves?
Well, I just wonder if they're also coddled, that normally they have assistants running after them, or, interns in the newsrooms that do that kind of stuff, and they can't be bothered to do it. It's beneath them or something.
I think there's part of it. It's part of that too. I mean, this idea that, and they're all sitting all over each other. Their offices are like crammed. It's all jammed in. They're like in the basement. I mean, it's really not glamorous at all whatsoever. But they hop on TV and they've got the makeup and they've got the hair, so they want you to think that it's, oh yes, we're here and we're the official news person. But then you see it off the camera and it's like, oh, Pete Robinson, by the way, is not tall. He's only like 5'7".
Oh, that's always the fun thing about meeting
from
people.
NBC News. And every time he saw me, he's like looking over his shoulder, glaring at me. Oh, Posobiec's here.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, what the atmosphere was like, because the scenario I have painted in my head is like someone who is an out-of-towner walking into the only bar in a small town and opening the door, and all the patrons looking over their shoulder, thinking to themselves, he ain't from around here, is he? I mean, is that?
It is very much like that, and it wasn't, it wasn't like one of those, kind of like a movie, we don't take too kindly to conservatives, right? It wasn't like that, but it was very much like a rustling and eyes looking around at you. And on social media, I mean, they were lighting, the liberal blue checkmark Twitter was lighting me up, saying, how dare Posobiec be in that room? I mean, look what he did here, look what he did there, and we can't have conservatives in there. He's pro-Trump. He's not going to ask serious questions. He's going to be a buffoon. Keith Olbermann, who of course wasn't there because he was fired in disgrace recently, he called me a scumbag and said, I'm surprised you can tie a tie, Posobiec.
Oh, wow. Burn.
And I mean, just the amount of triggering that it gave these people. And I'm like, guys, I'm just standing here. That's all I'm doing.
But it makes you want to go back every day now just to have that reaction, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because I want to wait until the point where I can ask a question. If I get called up by Sean or Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's now covering this week, and I'm going to ask a legitimate question. I'm not going to play this game. So what they do is, Tracy, they have this Slack channel open. And it's not all the people in there, but more of the major ones, more of the bigger ones. They have the Slack channel open, and they're all texting each other on. It's like a chat room. And they keep asking Spicer the same question, but in slightly different ways. So they're trying to get under his skin. And they're just going for that gotcha moment where they can get him to say, like, oh, you said something happened 3 times, but the last time you said it happened 4 times. Oh, Spicer doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's like childish. It's so childish. Meanwhile, someone comes up and had a question. They said, oh, by the way, how do the Turkish feel about the new administration plan to arm the YPG Kurds, given the issues over there? I'm like, hey, that's a pretty legitimate question. Maybe we can ask about that. I got like 2 minutes, and he gets shouted down for these just barrages at Spicer.
I mean, to me, it's always seemed as if what goes on in that room is setting the desired narrative that the left wants. And the media is part of the left at this point in time. We're all pretty aware of that. And that seems to be what you're telling me happens.
Exactly. So in real time, I'm seeing the collusion, not only between the media and themselves, but the attacks directed towards the administration, towards Spicer, and ultimately towards President Trump. So it's not an idea of them trying to get a sense of, hey, what's going on within the administration. It's how can we attack the administration? Who can we attack that was in the administration now or is associated with the administration? What can we do to get score points, it almost feels like. And what was interesting was that actually after the briefing that I attended was when James Comey was fired. And you could tell that not a single person in that room had a clue that was coming, because they were all asking questions about like General Flynn, who hasn't been in the administration for months, and all this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, there's this huge story brewing at FBI, and they were clueless, absolutely clueless.
So that broke basically when you were in the room, or it had happened after the briefing had concluded for the day?
It was. I kid you not. I was walking back to my car to drive home. After the whole thing ended, I grabbed a coffee, walking back to the car, was like, hey, good job, filed my tape, saw it pop on my Twitter, and I was just like, all right, turn around.
Right back in.
So we turned around, went back to the security office, we went back in, and we're like, all right, what's going on? Yeah.
And was the reaction in the room from the press that was still there just panic, that they didn't realize this was coming and then we had to figure out how to spin this?
It was complete panic. And so what they had to do was they had to find a way to attack Trump, because that's their line. They had to find a way to attack it. Meanwhile, for the entire past couple weeks and past couple months, they've all been praising James Comey because of his handling of, what he calls the counterintelligence investigation into the Trump-Russia collusion. So now they've got to turn around and say, oh, wait, but we do like Comey, but we don't like Comey, but we do, but we don't. It's like, every other week with these people. Hillary, of course, blaming Comey for her loss just 1 week ago. And actually, when we got in there, the press, I walked in, and the press, one of the deputy press secretaries handed me a statement that said, here's some quotes that you might find useful in your reporting, and along with the actual memos as to why the firing happened that we've all seen now. And it was quotes from Chuck Schumer saying that he had no confidence in Comey from just a few months ago.
Sure. And I saw, and Trump had tweeted out the supercut of all the Democrats trashing Comey this whole time. And it was pretty genius how they handled it. But I was interested to see, did anybody in that room, aside from you, because I'm pretty sure that you knew this, realize that Andrew McCabe was now going to be the acting head of the FBI?
They didn't, and it was really funny because I actually included it. I did a live Periscope right after it happened, and then a hit for Rebel Media and sent it off. And one of the questions that I got in on the Periscope was who's going to be head of the FBI. And just off the top of my head, I said, well, I guess it would be the deputy. And then, oh, wait, Andrew McCabe is going to be the deputy. And of course, he's got a lot of issues where his wife was taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from Terry McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe, of course, who was, a huge deputy for the Clintons and was the DNC chair at one point. And it's like, yeah, I just happen to know that because I've done my due diligence. I've done investigatory work. I've covered these stories. But nobody in the mainstream media has ever, you don't even hear them utter the name Andrew McCabe because either they just, it's on one hand, either they're trying to cover for him, or second, they're just ignorant and they don't know basic facts about the people they're covering.
Yeah, I was shocked because it was one of my immediate thoughts was like, whoa, wait a minute. Now Andrew McCabe's taking over this place. And we know about him because of exactly what you're talking about, how much money was funneled to his wife who had a failed bid for, she was state senate, was she going for? Some like podunk little office. But yet there was all this money flowing to her courtesy of Terry McAuliffe.
Yeah, because because state offices in Virginia as well as Pennsylvania, in those races, there's no restrictions on donations.
Mm-hmm. So he was involved, in theory, I mean, as far as we know, he was involved in looking into Hillary and what she was up to.
Yeah, while the investigation was going on, he's taking money from essentially Team Clinton through his wife.
Yes. So he's not compromised at all.
No, he's totally fine.
Yeah,
Correct.
I'm waiting. Like, how long until he gets the boot?
What I've heard from my sources, and I believe the administration put this out, is that they're actually holding interviews at the DOJ as we speak for a new FBI director. I ran into, actually, funny enough, later on that night I ran into Rudy Giuliani at Trump DC, but I asked him, hey, are you in town for an interview? And he said, no, I'm just here for meetings. But I thought that would be interesting. Rudy Giuliani at FBI, after we saw him run New York City. He was, DA and prosecutor for many years. Mm-hmm. But we look to hear, I would say that they're holding interviews. They held them yesterday. They held them today. Look for something to come out on Friday if it hasn't come out already.
So you think we'll know who the new FBI director is going to be, or at least who Trump is going to put forward, because he needs congressional approval. He or she, excuse me for being so sexist, as to assume that it would be a man.
I didn't know this was a misogynistic show. Can we cut this? Can we get me out of here?
Yeah, you're done. We can spike this interview. It never happened. But you expect we'll have a name by the end of the week?
I think there should be a name by the end of the week. Absolutely.
Interesting. And now, I believe Comey should have been tossed months ago. I don't know, Fingers, if you agree with that or not.
Yes. So, and the uproar over this is comical, because what they're saying is the timing is bad, as if he would have canned Comey day one, this wouldn't have been the same reaction. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so what's interesting is that Trump did I think it was very clever timing, because he waited until the narrative was set. D&I Clapper just went before the House and the Senate Intel committees and specifically said there was no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. There was no investigation into this that was warranted. And having the D&I for the Obama administration come out and say that gave him a lot of top cover to say, okay, why was this investigation kept open for almost a year at this point? Because remember, Comey mentioned during his own testimony that it started in July, this investigation into Trump, that why was it kept open for almost a full year when there was zero evidence gained?
Right. Well, and it's also stunning to me that everybody acts as if we've never had an FBI director that was a danger.
Yeah, this is the FBI we're talking about here. We've had J. Edgar Hoover in the past, who had Martin Luther King under surveillance, members of Hollywood under surveillance at times. I mean, the FBI is an extremely powerful domestic policing organization. They can conduct domestic surveillance with electronics today. Working with the NSA, they can conduct FISA warrant investigations on just about anyone they want. So it's very, very important that even the image, right, even the integrity, the perceived integrity of the FBI and the FBI director in the eyes of the American people absolutely has to be sacrosanct, because if that's compromised in any way, you're going to have people that are very, very worried, and rightfully so, civil libertarians and just regular folks that want to know, hey, are you listening to my cell phone? Are you looking into me? Are you going after your political opponents? That's not what America is supposed to be all about. That's more like Banana Republic, the stuff you'd see out of Venezuela these days.
Mm-hmm. And to go back to Hoover for a second, I mean, it seems to me that Comey fell into the same kind of trap that Hoover did, where he used his position to kind of enforce his own ethic, regardless of law. I mean, Hoover had files on everybody. You mentioned JFK and all this stuff, but I mean, it was way beyond that. it was egregious. And he didn't have the resources that are available today to somebody like Comey working in conjunction with the NSA, who's got files on everybody potentially that they could access. And we found out more and more that there was all kinds of unmasking going on. What was it? Like 3,500 American citizens were unmasked in 2016 by the Obama administration. And that's just the administration. Who knows what the heck's going on over at the FBI? And when you feel like you're on a moral mission as the leader of a pretty much unaccountable law enforcement agency, that gets scary. And when you step out of line publicly to the point where your integrity is questioned, you got to go.
Exactly. And we actually saw that in the filing that was done by the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, who said very specifically that it seemed like Comey was putting his own opinion ahead of the facts, ahead of procedure, and overstepping his bounds, saying, specifically with regards to the Clinton investigation, that he was almost making the Attorney General's case for her at the time, Loretta Lynch, saying that, oh, we don't believe that there should be any charges here. Well, sir, that's not your position. That's not your role. Your role is to uncover evidence and then turn that over. And it seemed like he was grossly overstepping his bounds, seriously making mistakes in terms of what the role and purview of his campaign was. It was basically, in the military, we had this thing, you got to know your left-right limits, right? You have to stay in your lane. This is your job. You follow your job. You follow your orders. You do what you're supposed to do. And then when you reach that limit, you hand it off to either the person whose job it's supposed to be or the rank above you that's supposed to be. But Comey, it seems that just decided to make it all on his own, didn't follow the chain of command, didn't follow his own procedures, and got the boot for it.
Okay, Jack, what do you have coming up here at the Rebel Media that our listeners should be looking out for?
So we're absolutely going to be digging more into the White House. So coming from this domestic law enforcement side, we absolutely are going to try to find out who the next FBI director is going to be, and certainly report on that. I'm actually taking a trip to the FBI building on Friday, where President Trump is expected to give a press conference. We're also going to be there as an independent voice in the White House, possibly almost every day, to make sure that's going on. I've also done a lot of investigatory work into the Antifa group, this domestic violence group that's going around throughout the United States, and that's been attacking Trump supporters. The fact that the mainstream media refuses to report on it. I go to CNN.com every day. It's almost like a joke at this point, and I type the word Antifa in, and there's still zero results returned. Zero. It's incredible to me.
And where can everyone find you on social media?
Sure. I live on Twitter, live and breathe on Twitter. So it's at Jack Posobiec, Posobiec. And on it's YouTube Rebel Media.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, thank you so much. Got to have you back. You're a font of information.
Uhuru.
And that's it for us this week. Final thoughts, Tracy?
I'm looking forward to seeing who the new head of the FBI is potentially going to be and how long Andrew McCabe gets to keep his job.
Confirmation should be a bloodbath.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my personal choice right now, just for pure trolling, is Sheriff David Clark. Oh, he came out about a week ago and said if I was FBI director, Hillary Clinton would be in jail.
Oh, get the popcorn ready. Where can everyone find the Enough Already podcast?
You can find it at enoughalready.us. You can also find it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and SoundCloud.
All right, that's it for us this week. Thanks for listening, everyone in southeastern Michigan on WHAM 1600 AM and on the World Wide Web. We'll be back next week with an all-new Enough Already.
Hey, you're on Twitter. I saw that tweet, man. So is Fingers and Tracy, too. Follow us. Follow Fingers at Fingers Malloy. Follow Tracy at Tracy L. Connors. And me, I don't have a handle on Twitter. Oh, all right. Well, follow those guys. When do I get I'm just the announcer guy. Yeah. It's Enough Already Radio with Fingers Malloy and Tracy L. Connors.